Demonic gators, dogs, and cats, oh my.
Let's check out some of the terrifying demonic entities stalking real American towns right now.
The town of Florala, Alabama, and parts of Florida were once stalked by a massive alligator. Nicknamed Two-Toed Tom, was often described as a 14-foot red-eyed hell demon, missing 2 toes on his left foot after getting caught in a trap. Now, stories of the gator eating livestock as well as farmers themselves started spreading in the 1920s. He was said to be impervious to bullets, and one famous tale even goes that a farmer named Pap Hines found one of his mules torn apart by what looked to have been a large alligator, so he and his sons filled 15 syrup buckets with dynamite, tossing it into the nearby pond to try and get rid of whatever creature they figured had crawled out of there to feed. Well, instead of killing the beast, they just enraged it. Out of the pond came the massive hellish gator known as Two-Toed Tom, who brutally attacked the farmer's granddaughter, eating her whole. Hines fired at the creature, but to no avail.
Ojai, California is said to be home to an incredibly terrifying demon with an incredibly heartbreaking past. Legend says that in 1948, a large bushfire broke out and destroyed everything in its path. Forests, grasslands, and even a few homes, one of which belonged to the father of who is now known as the Char-Man. When the fire engulfed the father and son's home, it claimed the life of the Char-Man's dad and badly burned the Char-Man himself. Due to the devastation of the fire, it was weeks before anyone was able to reach the home and provide support to any of the survivors of the fire. It was in this time that the Char-Man is said to have gone mad and to have given up his soul to some kind of demonic force. Apparently, when rescuers arrived, the Char-Man's father had been strung up by his feet, and the man's burnt skin had been almost entirely removed from his body. To this day, the Char-Man is said to haunt the Creek Road Bridge in the town, also known as Char-Man Bridge now. But it's a bit more than local legend, because apparently the local police station routinely receives calls about disturbances related to the Char-Man in the area he's believed to haunt, which makes the whole thing just a bit more real and a whole heck of a lot more terrifying.
A demonic dog is said to stalk a small stone church in the small mountain town of Valle, Crucis, in Watauga County, North Carolina. If you stop just off Highway 194 at the edge of town, you'll find an old church, and in the churchyard cemetery, if you're driving at night, you may be lucky enough, or rather unlucky enough, to come across a demonic creature known as the Demon Dog of Valle Crucis, a beast who lurks in the shadows of the old churchyard. Best case scenario, he'll just scare you away. Worst case scenario, you'll have found your final resting place. The story goes that 2 friends were out for a drive one night along the highway near the old church. The night was eerily quiet, but they were chatting away, not expecting anything out of the ordinary. But as they rounded a sharp corner, a dark figure suddenly jumped out from behind one of the old gravestones, landing right in front of the car. They slammed on the brakes and swerved onto the narrow shoulder of the road. They caught their breaths, slowly turning their necks to see what they'd almost hit. It looked to be a dog, but not a normal dog. This thing was as big as a full-grown man. Its fur was jet black and sticking up. Its teeth were bright yellow and impossibly sharp. And then there were its eyes, glowing bright, fiery red. The friends watched in horror as the beast started to move toward their car, and the driver slammed his foot on the gas, roaring down the road at top speed. There was no way this thing could have caught up with them. But when they glanced in the rearview mirror, their hearts sank. The dog was still behind them, and not only was it keeping up with them, it was closing the gap. The driver pressed the accelerator to the floor. They flew toward a bridge that crossed a small stream where 2 waters met. Just as the monstrous dog was about to reach them, though, it stopped, right as the car made it over the bridge. Valle Crucis is Latin for Valley of the Cross, where these 2 rivers meet, creating this kind of cross-like formation. Not ideal for a hound from the pits of hell.
In the small town of Cumberland, Rhode Island, a man known as Fingernail Freddy once lived peacefully until one day he got into an argument with a group of young people trespassing on his property. In the heat of the argument, he fired a round of rock salt at the group, who then left the scene. Freddy assumed that would be the end of it, but unfortunately for everyone involved, it was not. Apparently, in the dead of night, the group of trespassers snuck back onto Freddy's land and set his house ablaze. The fire claimed the lives of Freddy's wife as well as his sons and daughters, and Freddy himself suffered from extensive long-lasting injuries as well. After the ordeal, it is said that Freddy retreated into the woods where he stopped grooming and started plotting his revenge. At the end of his life, his fingernails had grown incredibly long and his soul had become incredibly dark. Many locals believe that after his death, Fingernail Freddy became some kind of demon that now haunts the town, scratching on the doors and windows of unruly individuals who remind him of the ones that ruined his life and destroyed his family.
Skinned Tom is an entity said to be just as grotesque looking as he sounds. He has no skin and his organs are exposed, still pulsating as if alive. If you find yourself on a date in Rogersville, Tennessee, you may want to avoid driving to any lovers' lanes. Rather than your typical tale of a killer with a hook for a hand, you may run into a skinless undead monstrosity named Skinned Tom, who gets irrationally enraged when he sees couples making out in parked cars. As most, serial killers of his ilk do, the tale goes that there was once a handsome guy named Tom, known for his charm and good looks. He had a knack for getting into relationships with women who were already married. And one night, while parked at a secluded lover's lane with someone else's wife, Tom found himself face to face with the woman's furious husband, a very furious husband. The enraged man decided to make Tom suffer. He beat him before skinning him alive. And Tom, rather than, taking his anger out on the husband, was left with a burning hatred of all couples, especially the women. And ever since that night, his restless spirit is said to roam, never to find peace until he tracks down the woman who watched him die, while, of course, slaying every innocent couple he sees on his way.
The legend of the Beast of Bladenboro, said to haunt the small town of Bladenboro in North Carolina, dates all the way back to the 1950s, during which time it is said that the town was held hostage by a large cat-like vampiric beast for almost a week. In total, this beast claimed the lives of 8 dogs, a family of cats, 1 lamb, and even a few villagers. After the ordeal, word got around to the neighboring villages and hunters started spilling into the small town, eager to catch a glimpse of the beast and even more eager to kill it. At the height of the panic, almost 1,000 hunters had traveled to the small town of Bladenboro, and in the end, an 11.5 kilogram, 25-pound bobcat was presented to the villagers, who were quick to believe their troubles had ended. Unfortunately, that was not the case, as rumblings and sightings of the massive beast are still reported in the area to this day.
New Orleans is absolutely full of spooky urban legends, one of which is the tale of the Devil Man, who is said to once stalk the city's Algiers neighborhood. Sightings of a horned humanoid creature with chicken eyes and long pointy ears started being reported in 1938. And as silly as this description sounds, people were actually pretty terrified at the time. See, this was about 20 years after the infamous unsolved case of the Axeman, a very real serial killer who terrorized the people of New Orleans between May of 1918 and October of 1919, before vanishing just as suddenly as he'd appeared. In an infamous letter written in March of 1919, the Axeman had described himself as a sort of supernatural demonic entity. And add to the fact that he was never caught, it actually got people kind of questioning. So when multiple people from the same neighborhood began telling stories of a horned demon monster running through the streets at night, saying mean things to women and trashing bars, it really didn't seem all that far-fetched, especially because this thing seemed to be more, of a trickster, rather than a man hell-bent on just straight up killing you. So it was like, why not believe it?
This next demon is probably my absolute least favorite, because if you blink you might miss it. And it might kill you. It's the Blink Man, also known as the Peeping Tom of Ellicott City, Maryland, a demonic entity believed to haunt a tunnel located in the town. No one really knows how he came to be, but they do know to steer clear of staring down the tunnel at night if they want to avoid any kind of run-in with an early death. Although, I suppose it's not that bad when you take into consideration that one must follow a very specific set of rules in order to come face to face with the infamous demon. Rules that involve staring down the tunnel for an entire hour from midnight till 1 a.m. When that clock strikes 1 a.m., it's reported that the Blink Man will appear in your vision, and that every time you blink, he will appear closer and closer and closer until eventually he's standing right in front of you, ready to end your life and eat your flesh.
In Iowa City, you'll find a grave marker known as the Black Angel. It was built in 1913 and stands in the Oakland Cemetery. This 8.5-foot tall sculpture wasn't always black. It used to be a shiny bronze, but over time it turned dark, giving it the creepy appearance that it has today. And there are tons of legends about what might have caused it. Some people believe it's a sign of a curse, while others say it's because of all the sins of the people buried beneath it. One of the most popular legends says that anyone who touches or kisses the statue at midnight will die within a year. It's said that the angel's black color is a warning, and anyone who ignores it is doomed. And if you're ever visiting and happen to be superstitious and pregnant, you might want to avoid walking under the wings. It's said you'll miscarry. There are also tales of ghostly apparitions and strange occurrences around the statue. People have reported feeling this overwhelming sense of dread as they approach it, and some claim to have seen glowing eyes in the angel's face at night. Others say they've heard whispers or felt cold spots in the air, as if the statue is watching and judging those who come near.
It has been said that a demon reigns over Utah's Escalante Petrified Forest State Park. Furthermore, the demon is said to curse anyone who is stupid enough not to A. obey the law, and B. heed the warnings of the locals and go ahead and remove a piece of petrified wood from its forest home. While there is quite a hefty fine for those who get caught attempting to make off with unlawful souvenirs foraged from the area, the supernatural consequences tend to be far worse. Because of this, from as far back as the 1930s, the park has received a steady stream of packages containing both the pieces of stolen petrified wood and letters from the people who stole them, begging park rangers to put those pieces back where they came from. Many of these letters also include personal accounts of the terrible things that have happened to the thieves since removing the pieces, with some people claiming to have gone broke, experienced medical complications, and occasionally deaths have occurred as well. Apparently though, besides the curse, the forest is really beautiful, but if I were you, I'd wait and grab the souvenir from the gift shop.
More travel destinations to your list and more amazing sights to see in these small American towns.
Stay safe.